Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2021 and welcome to your qualifying report for the 2021 French Grand Prix. Now, Paul Ricard, the circuit Le Castellet, doesn't always give us the best racing and doesn't always give us a nice mixed up spicy grid heading into the Grand Prix. However, after today's session, it could be pretty good. I'm going to keep my fingers well and truly crossed because with Charles Leclerc taking the last two pole positions, could Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton be back in the fight this weekend? Spoiler warning ahead, here is your result for today's qualifying session. Claiming his second pole position in 2021, the Flying Dutchman Super Max Verstappen claimed pole position, a 129.990, the only driver to get into the 129s, but with Hamilton second, Bottas third, Mercedes are going to give him a real run for his money in the race tomorrow. Fourth place is Sergio Perez, and just like the two Mercs, is well and truly in the fight for victory tomorrow, and in behind the midfield fight as tight as ever. This time it was Ferrari's Carlos Sainz who came out on top. P5 for the Spaniard, P7 for Charles Leclerc and the second Ferrari. However, home hero Pierre Gasly once again impressing in qualifying, P6 for the Frenchman. Norris was the lead McLaren in 8th, Fernando Alonso was the lead Alpine car in 9th at their home Grand Prix, and Daniel Ricciardo rounded out your top 10. It was your second home hero Esteban Ocon in P11 and starting your second half of the grid. However, though he didn't quite make it into the top 10, free tyre choice for the Frenchman could bode well in the race tomorrow. P12 for Sebastian Vettel, he was in front of Antonio Giovinazzi and George Russell, but a big story in qualifying today was not only Mick Schumacher crashing out at the end of Q1, he also made it into Q2 for the first time in his Formula 1 career and Haas's first Q3 appearance of the 2021 season. Behind Schumacher and those who were super unlucky to not get a flying lap through at the end of Q1 were Nicholas Latifi missing out by 0.002 of a second, Raikkonen in 17th, Mazepin 18th and Stroll unable to set a representative time, and Yuki Tsunoda bringing out the red flags right at the start of today's session rounds out your grid. And as we move over to our qualifying report, where else to start but with our pole sitter, Max Verstappen, Red Bull on pole at the French Grand Prix. I mean, come on, who saw that coming? Yes, Red Bull have been on a real swing of momentum at the moment. Back-to-back victories in the last two Grand Prix. But even so, it's been Mercedes that have been the quicker of the two teams on traditional race circuits. The last two venues, Monaco and Baku, street circuits that have really brought out the strengths of that Red Bull car. And even though Mercedes definitely had their own issues to contend with this weekend, I think the fact we've got a Max Verstappen on pole and even Sergio Perez in fourth really paints a picture that this Red Bull car really is quick at just any venue, which is brilliant for them, brilliant for us, because it means in every race this year, we're getting a fight between Mercedes and Red Bull. And with a driver like Verstappen, who today was faultless, no issues with track limits, no little wide moments, no complaints whatsoever, to stick it on pole, on this wave of momentum he's on at the moment, you really do start to think, who can stop him? And to make it just that extra little bit sweeter for Red Bull Racing, Perez is fourth, comfortably in front of that midfield. And for how many years now have we said, if Red Bull just had another car in that fight, doesn't need to be winning, doesn't need to be pushing Verstappen for pole, but as long as they're roughly in the mix with the two Mercedes, not a million miles away from Verstappen's time, they're going to be able to cause Mercedes headaches on multiple fronts. And at turn one, if Perez can even get in front of one car, even if he doesn't, but he's there on strategy, that's going to be perfect for Red Bull. It's going to give them options which for so many years now they just haven't been able to have, and it's really played to the strength of that Mercedes. But on the subject of Mercedes, how are they going to feel walking away from this session? Because on the one hand, we're at Paul Ricard, we're at the French Grand Prix. This is a track where many people, including themselves, thought they would have the edge over Red Bull Racing. Historically, it's been a really good hunting ground for them, and this year, this kind of layout, this kind of venue, looks to suit that Mercedes car a little bit more. So coming away with second and third, what do we think? Mixed emotions, I think is the right way to put it. They've got two cars well and truly in the fight for victory tomorrow, and Mercedes, more than anyone else in modern Formula 1, know points are on Sunday. And judging by their pace on Friday in FP2, it looks like Mercedes' race pace is a little bit better than that Red Bull car. But what we have also found out over the course of this weekend is this Mercedes car is really affected by tyre temperatures and track temperatures. And that's going to be the real Achilles heel for the two Mercs in the race tomorrow. It's not an ideal result, but it's not too bad either. But what I can say is those front four were miles in front of the midfield today. No hope whatsoever of another Ferrari pole position, another McLaren close to pole position like we saw with Norris and Imola. No, the midfield, well and truly the midfield. And this time out, it was Ferrari that were best of the rest. Carlos Sainz, P5, Charles Leclerc, P7, continuing his great streak of finishing in Q3 in every race in 2021. But though it's a good day for Ferrari, that's a great result, they know, we know, their race pace just isn't as good as those other midfield cars. And I worry for them that the pace of Gasly at his home Grand Prix is going to be too much. I look at McLaren, who this morning, with their setup changes, looked brilliant. Brilliant in race pace. I really do fear it could be a pretty dismal day tomorrow for Ferrari. They could be lucky to score points, because when you've even got the Alpine cars, one in the top 10, Ocon on the alternate strategy, I don't know. It's one we're going to have to wait and see, but I think other teams will think Ferrari is an opportunity to make up positions. And Gasly, with his home event, he's kind of on his own. Well, he's definitely on his own, with teammate Yuki Tsunoda causing that red flag at the very opening of qualifying today. And I've seen pretty much instantaneously after that incident, many people going straight away to say he's not ready for Formula 1. Oh, look, another qualifying crash. You're not wrong. It is another qualifying crash. But I think this is Yuki Tsunoda being Yuki Tsunoda. This is why he was so great in Formula 2, because he was aggressive. He was prepared to push those boundaries. But now the issue is he's in Formula 1, and that limit, finding that boundary, is so much harder. Balancing the aggression, the risk, with keeping things calm. Getting that clean lap time, getting through the sessions is something I think he's struggling with a little bit at the moment. And when you consider it's only his 7th Grand Prix, he's had some great results so far this year, some great race performances and some pretty nifty qualifying, he's just lacking that consistency. They're expensive mistakes. AlphaTauri won't be too happy, but when you've got Gasly in the form of his life, continuing to be a boss, was epic last year, just as good this year, if not slightly better, I would argue, in a midfield that is even closer. They've got a great chance of some big points. And I don't want to get too carried away, though you know me, I love to get carried away. If there's a little crashy, shall we say, between those two top teams in front, wouldn't surprise me if Gasly was there to take the opportunity to get back-to-back podiums. Race pace though, midfield way off those front two teams, but AlphaTauri once again proving they are in the mix this season, and Gasly another great performance at his home Grand Prix. It's a funny day for McLaren, and I don't really want to spend too long with McLaren because 8th and 10th isn't their best result of the season, but I loved how good that car looked in practice yesterday and this morning. They seem to have a really nice balanced car where many of these cars were right on the edge, ready to make a mistake and really were heating up those tyres and making them uncomfortable to drive on. I didn't get that vibe from the McLaren camp. And even Ricciardo, who's struggled a fair bit so far this year, I don't think I've been as harsh as some people have with his performances, even he was quite buoyant today. And I think they secretly know they've got a really good race car for tomorrow's Grand Prix. And I think the same could be said for Alpine. Their race pace looked really strong in practice too. It looked better than Ferrari. And with Alonso in 9th, a good boost of confidence for him. But with Ocon in 11th, the first man on that alternate strategy, I think he could do some real damage for some of those guys in the top 10 that struggle off the start and being on that alternate compound, or even if they go with the same strategy, that newer rubber I think could really help the Frenchman score points at his home Grand Prix. At Aston Martin, it was mixed emotions, I think's fair to say. Vettel in 12th, another really solid performance. I feel Seb is really starting to settle at Aston Martin now, and you can see that in his driving, in his results, and his overall performances over the last 3 or 4 weekends have been really, really good. My driver of the day in the last 2 Grand Prix. So no complaints again. Well and truly in the mix for points tomorrow. But Lance Stroll, oh bless him, it just never came to him today. Was unable to set a representative lap on the first time around. Then, at the second bite of the cherry, got caught up in so much traffic, so backed off, and on his final lap, Mick Schumacher caused the red flag. Stroll, 19th place. And though we have seen some pretty great performances from the Canadian from time to time, at a circuit like Paul Ricard, I think it's going to be really difficult to score points tomorrow. Giovinazzi continues to be my superstar of qualifying in 2021, in front of George Russell, again into Q2. Yes, Kimi Raikkonen didn't get a go at getting into Q2, but even still, Giovinazzi not a million miles away from Q3, less than 2/10 off getting through to Q3. Another great drive from the Italian, and Raikkonen, like I just mentioned, unlucky not to get a chance at getting through to Q2. At Williams, it's a very similar story, with Russell continuing his streak of getting through to Q2 in every race in 2021, with Nicholas Latifi just 0.02 of getting through to Q2, but not a bad place, definitely in the mix with those back groups to have a good race tomorrow. And it was an eventful day for Haas. Not for Nikita Mazepin, who had a huge spin this morning in practice 3, but Mick Schumacher. It's, well, a win, kind of, for the Haas team. Q2 for the first time in 2021, for the first time in Mick Schumacher's career. But the mechanics have got some work to do. A big slide out of turn 6 into the barriers. And well, mixed emotions is what I will say on that one. Before we go then, ones to watch for the race tomorrow and your driver of the day. I think with my driver of the day, I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. It's not normal I go with the pole sitter, but on a circuit where we thought, everyone thought, most people thought, let me know in the comments those who didn't, but most people thought that Mercedes would wipe the floor with Red Bull this weekend. Pole position, the only driver to get into the 129s, not a bad job from Max. And my ones to watch for the race tomorrow, Lance Stroll from the back of the grid. What can he do in progressing towards the front? Valtteri Bottas, so much rumours and talk about his future. I want to see that impact his driving tomorrow and maybe get his first win of the season. Raikkonen, I feel the Iceman is out of position where he will start the race tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Kimi can do. But your racing reviews, ones to watch for this weekend's French Grand Prix, is home hero Ocon, 11th place. Alternate strategy, I think he could score big and surprise a few people in tomorrow's race. That's it from me here in France. I'll be back tomorrow after the race for some race reaction over on the F1 Word and your race review tomorrow evening. Lights out at 2 o'clock UK time, hopefully we have a good race. Fingers crossed for a good race. Subscribe if you are new and want to keep up to date with all Formula 1 2021, and I hope to see you all in the next one.